and more, which I think will be an increasingly important facet of our lives now and in the near future. And so in this talk, my hope is to kind of give you an outline of what I see on the AI risk horizon. I need you with three fundamental challenges I think all of us need to chew on and work on as we go forward into what might be called the age of AI. So what do we say? Alarm bells. It started ringing around the world in 2014 when the late astrophysics Stephen Hawking co-authored an opinion editorial about artificial intelligence, or AI. The suite of technologies that make machines capable of performing tasks that, if executed by a human, would be called intelligence. Hawking said of AI, the potential benefits are huge. Everything that civilization has to offer is a product of human intelligence. We cannot predict what we might achieve when this intelligence is magnified by the tools that AI may provide, but the eradication of war, disease, and poverty would be high on anyone's list. Success in creating AI would be the biggest event in human history. Unfortunately, it might also be the last, unless we learn how to avoid the risk. So in other words, the stakes are high. AI is fast and booming, promising tremendous benefits and threatening humankind with catastrophic consequences, including, according to Hawking, extinction. AI is therefore what I call an epochal technology, as an epic maker. As with earlier technologies like nuclear power and genetic engineering, for better or worse, there will be a before AI and an after AI in the history of humanity. Now, the dire tone of Hawking started warning about AI in 2014 ricocheted around the media sphere and into the visual field of researcher, whose interest has peaked, and in the 5 years since then, I've been following research development and techno scientists in AI, including both technologists and scientists and engineers and financial architects, to try and understand what the risks really are and see how society can learn to avoid it. This talk will summarize some of my findings on both fronts, with particular attention to taking cybersecurity as an important component of AI risk and a critical factor in catastrophe aversion. In the course of this talk, I'll identify three fundamental challenges facing contemporary societies as they cope with these emerging technologies and hope you'll take it home with you. So, the outline is tough. I'll start by providing some background on the current moment in AI, what's happening now, and what is different this time. After introducing the first fundamental challenge of AI, I'll pivot to consider the role cybersecurity plays in the emerging age of AI, and identify a second fundamental challenge, which I call pervasive cyber insecurity. Then I will take you on a scan of what I call the seven-dimensional AI risk horizon to examine the scope and severity of AI risk across multiple domains, as well as cyber insecurity in areas. Finally, I take a look at exit AI and cybersecurity risk governance architectures, to look at some shortcomings and gesture towards some prospects for fairer, wiser, and perhaps more democratic governance before encouraging all of us to consider our future orientation as well. So, where are we with AI? What's going on right now? Who's been hearing about AI in the news? Pretty much everybody, and I'm guessing people who know your hand probably. That's not the imagination. Colin Garvey, the New York Times article on AI, and as a kind of proxy for the kind of media coverage it's giving, and sure enough, we went back to 1956, even though the field on that, if you want anything else. News coverage has just exploded, and we stopped the study in mid-2018, but you can imagine in 2018 by a ton quite fast. News coverage has just exploded. There's been a number of search tools and recognition. We've been human gameplay in Go and driverless cars, and a number of other domains have seen some breakthroughs. And so AI was that continuing again, and the reason I say that is because we are in what I would call the third boom of AI. Okay? AI is typically called an emerging technology, and this is not without some irony because AI began emerging in the mid-1950s. It started with what's now called GOFA, which is an old-fashioned artificial intelligence, where the focus is on symbolic logic, capturing general human intelligence in a machine. When that failed, the military stopped funding it through the 1970s, and the second boom was triggered by Edward Feigenbaum at Stanford's development of what he called expert systems. And so he narrowed the domain to be modeled from human cognition writ large to an expert knowledge domain, something like chemistry or medicine or accounting. Who uses TurboTax? Maybe you're too young and you don't pay taxes. But you might imagine that you've heard of TurboTax. That's a leftover from the expert systems era, right? It has the knowledge of an accountant in the software. That was AI before. But these systems proved brittle, not resistant to change. It turns out fewer experts update their knowledge all the time. That became very hard to use in the system. There was a second AI winter in the mid-80s and 1990s that persisted really into the 2010s when we saw some major breakthroughs in the image recognition, which is driven mostly by new set of techniques, again, that are not actually that new, and were first developed in the 40s and 50s. They're called machine learning techniques, in particular, neural networks. Okay, you're probably more familiar with them than me. Neural networks, original papers in 1946. They're very old, but what's changed, now we have the data and the computing power to make them work. And they work very well, they're pretty fast. And that is what drives a lot of the current AI boom. So this is kind of the third time around. Okay? Is it different this time? Probably everyone who's doing AI right now, professionally in the field, will tell you, yes, it's definitely different this time. As a historian, I'm not sure. But some of the technical differences worth mentioning are scaling. First, early boom 1 and boom 2 AI look more like this, if you can visualize it, right? Trees of if-then statements, which can be readily understood by the programmer. The problem is it's very hard to use symbolic logic to recognize a face, because it's almost impossible to formalize what you do when you recognize a face. In the new AI boom, we're working with deep neural networks. Deep meaning many, many layers. The original neural networks were just 1, 2, or 3 layers. They can't be 1 layer. 2 or 3 layers deep. Okay. Contemporary neural networks have up to 100 layers, supposedly up to 1,000 for some. And you'll go from input to output through something that does contain certain amounts of machine logic, but it's too complex to actually understand for most of the programmers who use neural networks. We just know it works very well for things like recognizing a face, sometimes translating language. And so these are quite salient differences because no longer programmers need to know what it takes to recognize a face. They can show a machine learning algorithm or a neural network, say like 1 million pictures of faces. The machine will learn from those faces to recognize faces from new data. Okay, there's a training period. It works on this training data set. Once the algorithm is trained, it might achieve, let's say, like a 95% accuracy on a facial recognition task on new data. So this is like the success story of machine learning. And for this reason, it may well be different this time. Just with the existing deep neural network technologies we have applied to new domains, there still may be a decade or more of really big breakthroughs to be seen. But the social and technical understructure of AI in this boom is quite different than in previous booms. So, right now, AI exists as part and parcel of what Shoshana Zuboff, the sociologist, has called surveillance capitalism. Who's heard the expression, if the product is, if the service is free, then you are the product? And you kind of know what I mean there, right? So how does this work? We get on Google,
Gmail for free. I was one of the first people to get invited to Gmail. I thought I was the coolest. It was like 2004. But I didn't realize they're harvesting all my data from Gmail. So they do the data harvesting, not just Gmail, any service you use, any app you have on your phone, even a flashlight app. It turns out these are leaking your data away. People calling this data exhaust. I would say that's wrong. It's gold dust that we let off, right? It's gold dust. Because they aggregate it all into the large servers, and then they run machine learning on it, right? This is where the AI comes in. This allows them to do predictive modeling on you, the product, right? So that could be something that shows up in your user interface like a targeted advertisement. Or really, it's at this level of user interfacing that all forms of behavioral control become possible in this kind of surveillance capitalism model, okay? So AI is part of this situation, and it feeds what is called by some a virtuous cycle where human data drives the AI drives ad placement. All right? So you imagine all the billions of searches happening on Google right now. Each one of those is a space where potential ads could appear, but they need to be relevant. Who's going to pick what goes where? The AI does it, right? So Google's revenue is like 95% from AI-powered advertising placement. This is called a virtuous cycle because the money generated by the ads then feeds back into more AI R&D. So, in previous booms 1 and 2, industry did very little, if any, of the R&D. It was primarily the military working with universities as the major drivers for AI. In the current situation, military and universities are both players and big players in the game, but a new class of entities that I call the MAGAF have a much bigger role to play in AI. So these are Microsoft, Apple, Google, Amazon, and Facebook. So in addition to providing some convenient services to consumers, such as reliable GPS navigation, reasonably legible language translation, and those dangerously seductive, you might also like, suggestions on Amazon, right? Oh, man. AI is making these companies a lot of money, right? Just last year, Google and Facebook netted a combined $80 billion in revenue from online ad sales, all powered by AI. I don't really need to convince you that these guys are making money. My point is that AI is benefiting us right now with certain conveniences like facial recognition on Facebook. Great. It's making certain corporations literally tens and tens of billions of dollars a year. So the benefits, as we'll see, like the risks, are unevenly distributed, is my point here. Okay? Now, Boom 3 AI also differs from earlier AI manifestations in that it relies on a very large, I would say, pervasive digital infrastructure to work at all. So when facial recognition happens on Facebook and your friend's face is automatically tagged, and that's pretty convenient, that family photo with a lot of people in it, would have been painstaking to do by hand, super convenient. That is really a surface effect of a much larger structure underneath that provides that power. So first there's machine learning, which I already talked about a little bit. But machine learning, to get better, needs more data to improve. However, there are diminishing returns to more and more data. So imagine, your facial recognition algorithm is accurate 98% of the time. If you're recognizing billions of photos a day on Facebook, 2% error is huge, big problem. To close that last 2% is, what do I want to say, orders of magnitude more data are needed to close those last 2%. There's a mathematical phenomenon that I want to this is a well-known phenomenon. Now, to get more of that data, to improve the machine learning, we need a more extensive Internet of Things, right? Have you heard about the Internet of Things? Okay, what is Internet of Things? Connected devices, right? Small data sensing connected devices that can then share that data back up into the data centers where the machine learning can run. Okay? Between all these IoT devices, we need rapid transmission. This is coming out in 5th generation wireless, or 5G. So 5G has much higher data transmission. However, it can't transmit nearly as far. So instead of large cell phone towers, we're going to have small units down each block, right? Another facet of the Internet of Things will be the 5G rollout. Connecting all of this and storing all the data that's gathered is what's called the cloud, right? Or as my hacker friend says, someone else's computer. That's the cloud, right? And it's typically a gigantic computer. It's huge. The cloud is where not only storage happens, but processing can take place. So who knows what Amazon Web Services is? Yeah. You can rent space in the cloud, you can rent processing in the cloud, you can do huge computation from your home computer thanks to the cloud. And this is a vital part of the new AI infrastructure. One thing we often look over is that there are huge numbers of human labelers working on that data to make the AI work at all. Labeling the data, telling the thing what a face is when it gets it wrong, correcting the data. Who heard that Alexa records conversations that then Amazon employees listen to? Who heard that Apple actually does that with Siri's conversations? Who thinks that this won't happen with the next AI agent? Okay. So, and then last, the fog. This was like totally new to me. The cloud is coming down to us. You don't have to go to the cloud anymore. The fog will come to you. So this is a real thing. The fog is coming. This sounds great. This is what will be necessary to realize the promise of AI in this current moment. It will be a vast infrastructure, but you can imagine this realizes the vision of ubiquitous computing that was promoted in the 60s and 70s. That, you know, sometimes this works. You walk into the bathroom at the airport, the lights kick on. It recognizes you. It says your name. You know, you put your hands under a wall. Imagine walking home and like the house recognizes it. You know, for all these things that are part of the AI imaginary to work, this is the background and the infrastructure that we will need. But all of that infrastructure raises serious questions and makes it very hard for us to make good decisions about how to use AI and how this infrastructure should be a part of our lives. It increases the complexity of daily life immensely. Even as it simplifies things, they become more complex. I was in the airport, right, coming here. Who's done this before? Give me some water. Give me some water. Right? It used to be simple. Now it's like this time, just wave.
They never work for me.
It never works, right? I walked into a glass door because it didn't, you know. That's just like the baseline example. The complexity of having, you know, this room full of 100 IoT devices, each of them relaying data, obviously raises a level of complexity. With that, we get disagreement. Is that better or worse? Is it good to have facial recognition? Does that make your school more secure? Or is it not? Is that making you a victim of some kind of invasive technology? We might not agree about what is what, right? And with more complex technologies invading more of our life, there's more room to disagree about how they should work, what they should do, whether they should be there at all. And on top of all this, it introduces vast unknown unknowns, right? Maybe some known unknowns, but some unknown unknowns. Vast complexity, vast socio-technical complexity introduces potentially catastrophic scenarios we might not even be aware of. So, this leads me to the first fundamental challenge. AI requires a vast infrastructure to fulfill its promise. For lack of a better word, I call it MLIoT 5G cloud fog. That was a joke. It requires this vast infrastructure. The digital infrastructure requires a certain kind of, I would say, total trust to work, right? If you think your cell phone's spying on you, but your computer's safe, right? It's kind of an all or nothing. If you're going to allow your whole life to be full of sensors and data sensing devices, you better trust every single one of them. Because if even a single one is untrustworthy, right, what are you stepping into? So It might work, but it would require, seriously, total trust, permeating everyday life. It would become, to opt out might mean you can't participate in normal life as a regular person. Same way that not having a car makes it hard to be a cool college kid sometimes. It's too complex to understand. As we come to rely on this vast technological infrastructure, there's an important question about our political autonomy. It's already coming up on Facebook. Debates about bubble filters, right? You get caught in a political bubble online, and then that shapes your view of the world and the view of yourself, right? If algorithms are making most of your daily decisions for you, what kind of autonomous agent are you, right, at the end of the day? Right? If predictive modeling can guess who you're going to vote for before you vote for them, what does it even mean to have a choice? Right? So this raises a serious problem for the political individual that we take as normal, but may no longer be a straightforward proposition in the individual. So let's pivot now to cybersecurity. I've given you the outline of AI. Now let's go from cybersecurity to cyber insecurity. All right? I want to scan what I call the AI risk horizon with a cybersecurity lens. All right. So, what are some of the consequences of this infrastructure? The growth of the Internet of Things, plus 5G, plus cloud, plus fog, plus people, means an increase in the number of devices, obviously, right? We could even say it's a linear increase, right? Who's a cybersecurity person? What can you tell me about your security or your attack surface when the number of devices increases? Oh, yeah. Much bigger, right? Increase in total number of interconnections between devices as well, right? This is a exponential growth. So there's going to be a Malthusian expansion of your attack surface, right? If you have vast numbers of new devices being added to the Internet of Things, just what Malthus would call the arithmetic or linear increase, right, of the number of devices. On top of that, you're going to get an exponential, or what Malthus would call geometric, increase in the number of interconnections, right? That's going to grow much faster because these devices can talk to each other. Now, as cybersecurity folks, you know that each device has an attack surface, and the interconnections between devices constitute an attack surface. So you're going to get a much larger attack surface as a consequence of this new infrastructure, right? And to call this increase linear is probably a mistake. It's probably exponential too, right? The number of new devices being connected is huge. So, I think we're looking at a combinatorial explosion of cybersecurity risk coming as a consequence of this AI infrastructure. And along with a cool increase in the number of nice services AI might provide, we might also be seeing a rapid acceleration of vulnerability, okay, as this infrastructure becomes part of everyday life. So I'm going to show you the most complex graph you're going to see today. This explains it. Number of devices times number of interconnections. Let's just say your attack surface is growing. What does that say about your defense capacity? Yeah. Take a picture, because this is what the future looks like. No, I think this is pretty abstract. I want to take it down now to some examples. So, the AI risk horizon. Now, probably, who's watched Terminator? Okay. I am not so worried about Terminator. Mainstream AI risk literature focuses on the existential risk of a so-called intelligence explosion. This is the danger that, like a nuclear chain reaction, a self-improving AI might explode into artificial superintelligence, and of course take over the world and kill everyone, yada yada. But in my interviews with fieldwork amongst AI practitioners, I found no one really takes this seriously. The reality of laboratory life was that killer robots, when they're even functional, are far less impressive in person, right? None of the AI experts I talked to really took this threat seriously. But keep it in mind, because we'll come back to an existential threat I think is worth taking seriously. Okay. Probably more important is the military risk of AI. Before I jump to that, I just want to say, so the risk of like super intelligent AI then being hacked or hacking other things, I wouldn't worry about it. I don't think it's going to come. So military though. Militarized AI will not look like this. Yet, probably, ever. It'll look like this. It looks like this. Okay. It looks like this. It looks like this. It might start looking like this. Okay. A new fleet is being developed. And now, despite the attempt of thousands of AI scientists and other professionals to sign an open letter calling for a ban on offensive use of lethal autonomous weapons, US, Russia, and UK have no interest in signing the ban. So China, surprisingly, showed quite a bit of interest. But in the UN, that ban is not really going anywhere. So we could say this is the new phase of warfare, and an arms race is underway to develop a new comparative advantage in lethal autonomous weaponry, right? Weaponized AI. Who thinks these mission-critical devices will be 100% secure? Not even, no, not gullible. Okay, all right, yeah, I think you're right. I think not only do these lethal autonomous weapons raise incredibly disturbing questions about a new form of warfare, they raise the unappealing prospect that the whole arsenals could be hacked and used against the country that developed. Or that, for example, F-35 pilots, the new fighter jet that relies quite a bit on AI, could find themselves unable to control the machine. So, cybersecurity threats in weapons is bad. And this is being talked about, right? Headlines everywhere. A new AI arms race is happening, right? So we can come back to that, but for now we'll move on. Political risks. AI poses political risks to billions worldwide, as authoritarian governments use it to extend surveillance, concentrate decision-making power, and threaten democratic elections. Okay. So, while Elon Musk has warned that AI itself could become an immortal dictator, as he called it, actual dictators are embracing the technology. For example, Russian leader Vladimir Putin asserted that whoever leads in AI will rule the world, and China's Premier Xi Jinping announced his nation's intention to do just that by 2030. Now, who's heard something about the 2016 election, Russian bots, hacking? Do I need to? There's risks, guys. Let's move on. Economic risks. Robots taking your germs. Estimates of how many jobs are at risk over the next decades vary between 9% and 47% across OECD countries. But there's a lot of disagreement, even among experts. 2014 Pew study found 1,900 experts evenly divided over whether AI would improve or totally destroy the economy. But in an article entitled, and I think this was a good one, Kai-Fu Lee, a venture capitalist leading China's rise to AI superpower status, said in this article called, "Tech companies should stop pretending AI won't destroy jobs." This was in MIT Technology Review, if you guys want to see it. He says, "No matter what anyone tells you, we're not ready for the massive social upheavals on the way." And this is something that you folks at New Mexico Tech are going to actually be pretty well positioned to handle, right? You program, you know about these kinds of things. But you are now an elite minority of people. And it looks like automation is kind of the future for a lot of low-paying jobs and something we should think about. Now, does anyone have a good estimate of how much hacking costs the economy every year? $1 billion? How much?
Whole lots.
How about $1.6 trillion?
I would not quite go that far, but I would say about half of that is within a ballpark. I've seen figures from $70 billion annually just in the US to $300 billion just in the US to something like half a trillion, like $500 billion worldwide. Truth is, no one knows because companies often don't share the fact that they've paid off hackers or have been hacked because it's bad PR. Now, if on top of losing germs to robots, we are getting hacked at all of our jobs, thanks to the extensive infrastructure of AI, we could be losing more money even as AI saves us money in other ways. Right? So, try to pick it up a little bit. Coming back, Stephen Hawking said, if machines produce everything we need, the outcome will depend on how things are distributed. Everyone can enjoy life.